Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In the spring of the year 630, the East Roman Emperor Heraclius entered Jerusalem in triumph. He had achieved what only a few years earlier had appeared impossible. The armies of the Sasanian Persian Empire had been driven out of Roman territory. Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and much of Anatolia had been restored to Roman control. The sacred relic known as the True Cross was returned to the city. Heraclius appeared to have saved the Roman Empire from destruction. His enemy, the Sasanian king Khosrow II, had been executed. Persia had surrendered every major gain. To the people watching Heraclius celebrate, it must have seemed that the ancient order had survived. Rome had defeated Persia. Christian Jerusalem had been restored. But this victory was an illusion. Only 4 years after the peace, Arab Muslim armies began moving into Roman and Persian territory. 6 years after Heraclius' triumph, the Romans suffered a decisive defeat at the Battle of Yarmouk and lost control of Syria. Around the same time, the Sasanians were defeated at Qadisiyah. Their capital, Ctesiphon, fell shortly afterward. The Sasanian Empire ceased to exist. The war from 602 to 628 did not cause the rise of Islam, but it removed the two greatest barriers standing in their path. Both empires lost the world that made them powerful. For centuries before the final war, the Roman and Persian empires had dominated the Middle East, representing two competing visions of universal kingship. The Roman emperor ruled a Christian empire. The Sasanian king carried the title King of Kings, ruled an Iranian order associated with Zoroastrian traditions. Some late antique sources treated Rome and Persia as the two eyes of the civilized world, rival powers that recognized one another as imperial equals for 4 centuries. Most of their wars had been destructive but limited. The war beginning in 602 broke that pattern. It became an attempt to destroy the existing balance entirely. The origins of the war lay in an extraordinary personal relationship between a Roman emperor and a Persian king. In 590, Khosrow II was driven from his throne. Maurus agreed to help him recover it. In return, Khosrow made important territorial concessions. Then the Roman military turned against Maurus. In 602, troops elevated an officer named Phocas. Maurice and his sons were executed. Phocas became emperor. Khosrow declared he would avenge Maurice. It was an ideal justification, but his real motive was to break Roman power in the Middle East permanently. The Persian advance accelerated as Roman internal conflict worsened. Edessa was captured. The Persians entered Syria and Anatolia. In 610, Heraclius overthrew Phocas. He inherited a state approaching collapse, with Persian armies in the east and Avars threatening the Balkans. In 614, the Persians captured Jerusalem. The most humiliating loss was the removal of the True Cross. It became a religious catastrophe in Roman memory. Then came Egypt. Persians captured Alexandria around 619. Egypt was an essential source of grain and wealth. The Roman Empire seemed finished. Khosrow's victories were spectacular, but conquest was not consolidation. Underneath the expansion, the Sasanian state was exhausting its social foundations. Heraclius understood that waiting for Persian attacks would destroy the empire. He needed to change the geography of the war. He planned a daring strike. By taking the main army eastward, he left Constantinople vulnerable, but in 622 he launched the first of several major counteroffensives through Armenia. Heraclius presented the war as a sacred objective. He struck Azerbaijan and the Zoroastrian sanctuary of Adur-Gushnasp. It was a contest of imperial religious orders. The decisive year was 626. Khosrow coordinated with the Avars, placing Constantinople between two enemies. Walls, defenders, and the navy were its only hope. The Persians had no fleet. The Roman navy controlled the water, preventing the two armies from combining. The siege collapsed. Momentum shifted decisively. In 627, Heraclius launched his most daring campaign. Near the ruins of ancient Nineveh, he encountered the Persian army in a winter battle. The Roman army won. The Persian force was defeated. Heraclius moved toward Khosrow's royal residence, which was looted. Khosrow's political authority was destroyed. In February 628, Sasanian elites overthrew and executed Khosrow II. His son Shiro took the throne but soon died. Persia entered years of dynastic chaos. The Roman Empire appeared to recover. The true cross returned to Jerusalem, but the maps concealed the damage to loyalties and resources. Religious divisions complicated recovery. Theological disputes weakened unity between Constantinople and the restored provinces. The frontier with Arabia remained vulnerable. While Rome and Persia were fighting, a new religious community was developing in Arabia. Muhammad's migration to Medina occurred in 622. By 630, Muhammad had taken control of Mecca. By his death in 632, much of Arabia had entered the political and religious order he created. The Arab conquests succeeded because they possessed organization, mobility, and faith, but they encountered enemies who had spent 26 years dismantling one another. Arab Muslim forces began raiding in the early 630s. Neither empire understood that it faced a permanent geopolitical transformation. Then the campaigns expanded. In 636, the Roman army was defeated at Yarmouk. Syria was lost. Egypt was conquered shortly after. The Romans survived, but the Levant was gone. At Qadisiyah, the Persian army was defeated. Ctesiphon fell in 637. By 651, Yazdegerd III was killed. One ancient superpower disappeared entirely. Had the War of 600-2628 never occurred, would the Arab-Muslim conquests have been impossible? We cannot know, but we can identify what the war changed. First, it destroyed enormous quantities of trained military manpower. Veteran soldiers had been killed or exhausted across decades of warfare. Second, it damaged the fiscal systems supporting those armies. Disrupted trade and invasion reduced the ability of communities to pay taxes. Third, it weakened political legitimacy. Both empires experienced overthrows, slaughter of princes, and coups. Internal unity was shattered. Fourth, it destroyed frontier relationships. Arab allies shifted toward Medina as Persia's political influence in Arabia collapsed. Fifth, it weakened loyalty in recovered provinces. The Romans asked for taxes and theological conformity from communities that were already badly damaged. In Persia, once royal authority collapsed, the empire struggled to sustain coordinated resistance. Their enemies had spent years dismantling one another. The consequences extended far beyond borders. Within a few generations, former Sasanian and Roman territories belonged to an Islamic empire. The conquest did not simply erase Rome and Persia, it brought their institutions into a new framework. Sasanian models of kingship influenced later Islamic empires. Greek, Syriac, and Persian intellectual traditions entered Arabic scholarship. The old empires lost military control, but parts of their civilizations survived. The Sasanian-Byzantine War began with the murder of one emperor. It ended after both states had crossed the limits of what they could endure. The peace restored the border on a map. It did not restore the armies, revenues, or political confidence. Then the Arab-Muslim armies arrived. They encountered a historical opening of extraordinary proportions. The two dominant states had spent 26 years trying to eliminate one another. Without this war, a wrested Sasanian empire with an intact warrior class would have presented a profoundly different enemy. History would be different. This is why the war was one of the most consequential in history. It ended the geopolitical system of late antiquity. One superpower survived, one disappeared. Heraclius won the war, Khosrow lost his life, but the greatest winner was a power that neither had considered the main threat when the fighting began. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.